Your ego. What is it? What comprises this ego? Why do you live in your ego? We talk a lot about it. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. It is one of my specialties. And once you really start to understand it and how to walk with it and how to work with it, it's going to change a lot of things. It's going to create a calmer environment in your mind and a lot of acceptance on things that you cannot control. Let's talk about that right now. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori. Woo! Am I excited for you to be here? Excited for this topic? Excited for the season? Yeah, I am really happy to go into this. It is a big specialty of mine, one of three, though there's many other areas that I work in, but ego, attachment, and boundaries are my three foundational pieces, as well as victim mentality and a few things else. I've done multiple things on ego. Just last week, we were talking about closure and ego. And this is just going to be another reminder and a refresh. I have ego death. There's an ego death podcast, highly recommended. It's maybe a year ago. If you go back in the podcast catalog, you'll be able to see it. Highly encourage you, jump over to Patreon, get the worksheet that will accompany this. And I kind of go through it over on Patreon 4 times a week, not 4 times a week, 4 times a month, based on whatever topic we're talking about here. You can find that at patreon.com/the positivity experience. If you are tired of your own crap, if you are tired of living in your ego, get on my books. Let's work together. You can find that at www.thepositivityexperience.com. You can find both those links in the show notes here as we are chatting. The 5 journals are something that I've created. I have used them multiple times. Other therapist people use it. Very effective. Highly encourage you to grab those over on my website as well. All right, ego. Yay me. When I tell you this is a love language for me, I am probably way too excited to talk to you about ego and understanding it. So part of understanding human behavior, you will learn a lot about Sigmund Freud. This is a Freudian study. This is his theory. This is where it came from many moons ago. And you learn a lot more about it and you start to focus on, whoa, where am I in this part of my ego? You may also find that your ego is activated while we are talking about ego. A lot of times people do not like the mirror. Before I even get into this, people do not like to look in a mirror. They love it to be about everybody else. They don't want to look at it as being themselves. This is where they're going to promote excuses, right? My childhood, my this, my that. I don't know. I don't want to, but this is why, right? You start, negotiating that. That is your ego. That is the id part of your ego. There's a lot of reasons that your ego is activated. Let's acknowledge that. We know that there's trauma. We know that there's mood disorders, bipolar, OCD, ADHD. There's a lot that's going to contribute to your ego. And this is why you want to take ownership of it today and work on the other areas. Just because you have anxiety, bipolar, various mood disorders, and a lot of trauma, just means that it's going to be maybe a little harder for you to work on it. Doesn't mean it's impossible. So that's where you want to be careful of, attaching your identities to some of your diagnoses. And if it's important to you, you will absolutely do it. That's what we do as humans. We make time for what's important. It's not that you're just craving control, right? There's some arrogance that people think. It's not really not that. You're craving that control because it gives you this illusion of safety. If I control this, I am safe. If I control this, I know what to expect. By the way, this totally screws you in life. Because any moments of joy that you're having, you are just going, okay, well, I can only get so comfortable. This is going to end. So in turn, you're not living any part of your life because you're not resonating in those, let's call them good moments, whatever, uplifting moments, because you can't appreciate it because you're waiting to prepare in your head. That's not helping you. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're isolating and you're going to make your life more difficult than it needs to be. But at the root of that craving is your id. And if you're like, it's ID, just id. And that's your primal part of your mind. That doesn't care about logic, does not care. Logic goes bye-bye. Doesn't care about morality or timing. It wants comfort, validation, and safety this moment in time right now. This is why I get this a lot with my clients, actually. They're like, but I know this. Like, I know whatever it is we're talking about. I know this. Why do I keep wanting to control it? Well, this is here. This is exactly what we are talking about. The id part of your ego says, yeah, I don't really care what this is. Like, I don't care. This is what I want. I want it right now, and I'm going to do anything to get it. So let's go back, and I've talked about this multiple times. So let's go back into caveman days. Steve over here in cave 2 and John over here in cave 1, they're going to do whatever they need to do to get what they want when they want right now. So this goes back. This is primal. This is instinctual. This is your critter brain, your lizard brain, your survival brain, whatever you want to name it. It's trying to protect that pain in the moment, in the present time. And because you don't like that feeling of vulnerability. See, vulnerability is a superpower. Vulnerability is where emotional maturity is, where growth is, where things happen. That's your regular ego, which we'll talk about in a minute. Because there's an alternative to this, right? There's the other side of this, which is just as problematic. But what we're going to talk about today is learning how to rehabilitate that id. You got to stop letting your impulses run the show and start living from a grounded, balanced ego. Now, I do also understand where impulsive behavior comes from. It can come from even BPD. We know. So let's get very clear. We understand that there's other contributing factors. That doesn't make it any less your id. So you want to work on other areas. If you are prescribed medication, take your medication. If you are working with me and I'm giving you tools, use the tools. But at the end of the day, you are still responsible for your id. So let's talk about the science, because yes, there's science. It's not just opinion. There's an emotional engine of the mind. Remember what I said to you. Your mind, super smart. Your mind, super stupid, because it believes whatever it is that you feed it. That's the chicken and the egg, right? If you're negative, you're feeding negative. Your mind says, cool, cool, cool. If I feel like I'm in danger, I'm going to activate this part of my brain. So your brain's doing its job. It's just not aware if you're being chased by tigers or if you're just upset that somebody didn't give you closure. So it's your unconscious instinctual mind. That's unconscious. Okay, I'm going to walk you through this. Is what I tell my clients all the time. There's two versions of you. So let's say you're working with me and we're working on things. We're 7, 8, 10 months in, you're in. The conscious version of you, that's your mind today. You know, you're doing your work, you're doing your journals, you're doing the things. That part of your brain is like, that part of you is growing. You're growing, you're healing. Cool. Your subconscious, right? Your subconscious mind is not ever going to be on the same level as your logical mind. It just isn't. Now, you're carried along, but it's always going to be a little behind. So if your subconscious mind still feels like, yeah, I see us going through these motions. Ooh, I don't like it. It's going to go slower, which is why that impatience on healing is your thorn. Because you have to remember, just because your logic brain says, I'm doing the things, I'm dotting the I's, I'm crossing the T's, I'm doing my journal, I'm in therapy, I'm taking my medication. Why am I still resisting? It's your ego. It's your ego. It's that ego has to know that it can trust you and that everything isn't something that you have to come to battle with. It's just your instinctual mind. So that's the seat of desire, fear, avoidance of discomfort. It's the emotional child to your psyche. And that's running purely on the pleasure principle. You know, I'm sure you heard of that pleasure principle, that those impulsive choices, decisions, the need to fix, the need to know, the need to have closure is the id part of your brain going, we do not like this. I need to avoid pain. I need to chase comfort. I need to control what feels unsafe. At the end of the day, when you're trying to control what feels unsafe, you're living in your id. And going back to what I said about radical acceptance, I don't care what you're trying to control. I don't care how much you don't like that you can't control it. I don't care, and nobody else does. Until you are willing to accept that you do not have to control everything, you are going to keep chasing this battle of being right, being defensive, feeling like you need to prove a point. It. And of course, attachment and all of those other things that come into play. But it doesn't matter. You not accepting that you don't have control hurts 0 people except for you. This is go get that free letting go. It's like a 10-page thing, and I'm going to have a whole course on letting go and ego. It's going to be on my site probably early in the beginning of the year. Until you are willing to lay down your sword, be uncomfortable, and let your ego get a little bruised, you're going to live in this id part of your brain. I know you've seen this. I know you've been on the other end of this. So let's talk about neuroscience. Let's talk about the equivalent to it. So it's not just about, this id thing that I talk about. There's also neuroscience behind it. You're dominated by that amygdala and your limbic system activation. So those are the same areas that are triggered during emotional reactivity and addiction. This is imperative because it's not just saying, oh, you're id and it's Freudian and it sounds like some kind of a theory, though it is. There's also science behind this. When your amygdala is activated, that's this little thing that lives right behind your little forehead right here. And it's such a little powerful thing. And when that's activated, your limbic system is activated. We talk a lot about prefrontal cortex. We talk about, there's all of these areas that get activated and they feed each other. And here's where the id will come into play is when, I know you've heard people say this, well, trauma rewires the brain. Okay, first of all, yes. Why do you feel like that's some big thing that you got to hang your hat on so you don't work on it? You can say whatever you want to say. You're going to get people who are in their id are going to get super defensive to be right and to prove a point. Yes, it does rewire it, but you are responsible for rewiring it yourself and not live. So that's where victim mentality comes into play. Victim mentality lives in the id where it's like, oh yeah, well, it kind of lives in superego too. We'll talk about that too. Nope, I am right. Because your brain goes, ooh, I don't want to feel uncertain because that makes me uncomfortable. If that makes me uncomfortable, this is problematic. In your daily life, the id is running 80 to 90% of your actions. Crazy, but facts. 80 to 90% of your examples of your day. Here's some examples. Reacting to your text impulsively. So looking at a text, somebody says something, there's no filter. You go from, oh yeah? So you automatically go into defensiveness. Defensiveness will always be ego of the id part of your ego, always. So if somebody sends a text and you feel activated or you feel some kind of way or you feel that they're trying to get over on you, if you impulsively react, that is your id. That's your id. If you're buying things for comfort, well, we know that that's impulsivity. We know it's a dopamine hit. We know that there's other variables to that, which is why you want to work on that. Are you in dopamine? Are you seeking that? Is there an addiction to it? While valid, doesn't mean that it's any less your id, which is why you want to work on all of these things as a unit. You're never going to just work on one area. That's like mind, body, spirit. You're not just going to work on the mind without body and spirit. Across the board, you have to bring in all areas of your life that you want to work on and bring together. If you're over apologizing, yes, we know where it comes from, but if you're over apologizing, this is where manipulation comes from, even if it's unintentional. You don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to look like misunderstood. You don't want to look like you're wrong. Your id does not want that. That means it's uncomfortable. Ew. Do whatever we need to do. It's a problem. And again, I'm going to beat this into your head like a brick. Scrolling to escape. No. The amount of times, and every week I will go into it because obviously I work with neuroscience people. I've learned more about behavior. Every day there's something more coming out about dopamine depletion and the connection with scrolling. Along with avoidance. A lot of times you're scrolling to avoid things and then you lie to yourself, tell yourself that you don't have time because you don't want to do it. But that is still living in your id because you're escaping. Or if you're lashing out to feel seen. These are the people, think of, I don't know, let's say it's your mom or somebody, and they are always on the defense. They are always lashing out. Always. You could hand them a coffee and they don't like that there wasn't enough cream in it. And you go, oh, well, sorry, I didn't get the cream. Well, I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. These are the defensive, lashing out people. All of that is in the id. And it will always, always trade long-term peace for short-term comfort every single time. Now, unless your regular ego comes in to reparent it. There's three parts of your ego. Again, id, superego, and then the lovely mediator, just regular part of your ego. That's the piece that needs to reparent. That's the piece that says, all right, guys, let's come together. Let's do some rewiring here. That's what helps rewire your neural pathways. Here's where the id running the show becomes a massive problem, and it does the emotional hijacking. When the id dominates, there's three patterns that emerge. Impulsivity disguised as authenticity, reacting emotionally and calling it being real. You can be real and be direct. I really pride myself on being authentic and being real because I am unapologetically who I am, but not out of defensiveness. See, this is where you want to be careful of saying, oh, I don't really care. If you are activated emotionally, if you are triggered and not in a neutral place, you are in your id. You're not being real if you're being defensive. Now, I am very direct, very assertive. And somebody might look and go like, oh my God, that's so much. No, if I'm telling you I'm not going to tolerate something, I'm not telling you that because I'm activated. I'm telling you that because that's where my boundaries are. This is emotional maturity. This is boundaries within your regular part of your ego. It took me years and years to get here. Years. Multiple decades. And I practice it every single day. This goes into that impatience. Impatience, remember your id's like, I need this now. I need to know that I'm okay today. Hard pass. Hard pass. So anyway, it's that impulsivity. It's instant gratification disguised as safety. That's your constant checking, overworking, or numbing to feel in control. I need to overwork. I need to be seen. I need to be seen. I need to be valid. I need to know I feel good. This is where people mistake arrogance or like, oh my God, you're so egotistical. No, a person who is solid and confident walks into the room knowing they freaking belong in that room. People who feel like they don't belong in that room or are upset that they haven't walked to that room will always look at you as the problem. When you are confident, when you are direct, when you are in your boundaries, when you can look at yourself and say, hey, these are my faults, but I rock with them. I hold it. I have anxiety, but let's carry it. I'm not going to tolerate anybody's behavior because it doesn't serve my best and highest good. You will be considered egotistical, selfish, rude, self-absorbed, blah, blah, blah. We know the script. But just know that that's what that is. External control is regulation. Managing others, like, oh, I need to manage their emotions to avoid your own discomfort. You got to stop trying to manage people's emotions, trying to figure out the why. See, if you know the why, then it makes sense to you. So your brain and your id goes, okay, yeah, this is cool. No, until you radically accept your life, 80 to 90% will live in the id. Will live in the why would somebody do something so stupid? Why would they not understand to do it this way? Why are they doing it different than the way I do it? That is the problem within your ego. People are under this like illusion that ego is just about, oh, it's all about self-absorption. It's actually 5% about self-absorption and about everything else. Why does it matter that somebody's not doing it the way that you're doing it? Sit with that. Why do you need to know why they would make such a quote unquote stupid decision? Check yourself. What are you avoiding in yourself? What is your id trying to protect you from within yourself to be so caught up in somebody else? This is like other people's opinions. You ever have those people who just constantly, almost like not stalk in like this like crazy way, but are always at every turn, they're always criticizing something that you're doing. They are so busy worried about you that they're avoiding themselves. If you are so worried about judgment of other people, why would they do that? Why would they marry this person? Why are they doing these things? And that's going to go into super ego here in a second. You are thinking that you are better because you don't have to check yourself. And that's the id part. The id part goes, wait a minute, it's not me. The hell, it's not me, it's everybody around me. This is the blame game. It's my childhood, it's my ex-spouse, it's the narcissist. Okay, we know that that's a reason. That is not an excuse. But your id will look at it as though you're valid to be in victim mentality, and you are not. You're allowed to feel it. You're allowed to navigate through those feelings. Yes, that's how you heal. That's how you work. You feel your feelings. You know that you have to rebuild after dealing with a narcissist. You know you have to rebuild, and you're upset that you have to rebuild because you never asked to be in that position in the first place. Of course, but you are here. But you are here. This is where your power is. This is powerful. But you got to lay down the sword of the id in order to take back that power. Period. The id does not want long term. That's boring. That's not fast enough. That's not what I want to talk about. I don't want to repeat the same things over and over again. Well, then stay stuck. Because your id goes, okay, yeah. That's cool. We already talked about that last week. Yeah, okay. God, I know that already. You don't. You heard it. You don't know it, or you'd be practicing it every single day without worrying about why it's taking so long. Your id. And that's that emotional hijacking. It has taken that. It's running the world. And when the id dominates, those are your patterns. Those are your patterns. Here's the science behind that. Let's bring in science. Your amygdala, yeah, that little asshole thing, it overrides that prefrontal cortex. The brain will always, or the brain, yes, in general, the brain, and then that's the id part, prioritizes safety over logic. This is the, amygdala hijack. This is your id in action on the highest level. So think about yourself right now. Well, wait, I'll wait until we do super ego and ego, and then I'll talk to you about it. The Patreon worksheet is going to be pivotal for this, working through it. Now let's talk about the super ego, which is your id's opposite, right? Everything needs a yin and yang, and you're always going for the neutral part of it. This is why you have people go black, white, but there's 98 shades of gray that people don't want to be in, because that means that you have to live in your ego, the good part of your ego, right? The mediator, not the other two. Now, the super ego sounds like the adult in the room. Okay, so the id is like, oh yeah, watch me prove up. Oh yeah, that's another thing. The id wants to prove a point. Oh yeah, I'm not going to get them this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my red ball and I'm going to go home. That's the inner child brat. That's your id. Now, super ego is the adult that walks in the room, but it's the id just in disguise. So the id is always in action, but the super ego goes, how can I manipulate it to look like it's something else, but it's really the id? So it's really the id, but we're going to go with the super ego because it does go into other areas. Now, this is where you're seeking control out of morality instead of emotion. So the id says, I deserve this. Super ego says, you're not good enough to have it. Your super ego says you're not good enough to have it. But the id goes, I deserve this. So this is where, based on trauma, based on narcissism, based on whatever things that you have gone through, any emotional instabilities, this is that insecurity of yourself that says, I don't deserve this. But then the other side of that says, I do deserve this, but you may not believe that because you're too caught up in your superego. Both of those are fear-based. So here's some examples. Oh man, you just ate that dessert. Oh my God, think of your favorite dessert. And you sit there and oh my God, it's so good. And you eat the whole thing. But then you feel guilty. You're like, oh God, I feel guilty. So the id will go, that's okay. You earned this. And then the superego goes, well, you're weak. You're so weak. I can't believe you did that. This is that self-criticism, that self-judgment, and granted, some of those words were never put in your head by yourself. You've adopted that to be your voice. So if you were told as a kid how we don't like fat people, seriously, there have been people said that we don't like fat people. Don't do that. I can't believe that. What does this look like? You're never going to be blah, blah, blah. You adopt that. So we understand where this part of your superego can be exacerbated by your past. So if you immediately go, well, I was on it. First of all, don't go on a diet. This is the interpersonal trainer of me / past nutritionist in my superego. Good God. In my superpower back in the day of being a personal trainer, you never, ever, 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 ever go on a diet. You're just eating healthier for your body. If you lose weight, that's a byproduct, but that's a whole topic. This is where you got to be careful, because if you have that guilt and you feel like you earned it and then you're weak, if you're living in your healthy ego, that middle part, just go, hey, I enjoyed this dessert. It's fine. See, the goal isn't to silence either one, not the id nor the superego. It's to rehabilitate those enough to be in balance. This is the issue that you're going to have in a lot of things. You want to make that depression go away. Why? Walk with it. Learn what it is. If it's chemical, not situational, you're going to live with this forever. It's a chemical thing. To say you hate it, or you're trying to outrun it, or you're trying to do any of that, you're never going to fully love yourself, ever. You can't have self-love and then hate certain areas of your life. That's not a thing. I have anxiety, I have OCD, I have ADHD, I have anything with letters. All right, I use it to my benefit. If I know I'm going to make an excuse because of whatever reason to do my 5 journals, I have a couple sets. If I know certain things are going to slow me down, or I'm going to procrastinate some, or my anxiety is going to get higher, I don't try to outrun it. I walk with it. I've had anxiety attacks so bad that on Fifth Avenue in a building in my 20s, fully dressed up, I laid in front of elevators. I don't want to say refrigerators, in front of elevators. And people, I did not care. I don't care how that looks. If I had anxiety, I have anxiety. I'm going to hide that? For what? For what? It was funny though, because a couple of people were like, oh my God, should we call the ambulance? I'm laying there. I'm like, no, it's just an anxiety attack. I'll be up in a minute. I speak in front of people. I'm a public speaker. I've been in front of people, and a sparkly little light or a sound or a door opening, and my ADHD goes, oh, pretty. Hi, look how pretty that is. And then I'm like, oh, look at you. You're supposed to be speaking. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm not going to run from that. I'm not going to feel embarrassed by it. I'm going to look at whoever I see in the audience and be like, hey, listen, my ADHD is kicked in. What the hell was I just talking about? People laugh. I've had people come up after and go, oh my God, that was so refreshing. I'm not embarrassed by it. If you're embarrassed by it, you're in your id. You're in your id. You're so worried about other people's opinions. For what? That is your id. Your insecurities are rooted in id. Very important. So also think of this. I want to go into the morality part of superego. This is where religious trauma lives. We're going to use religion to control the narrative, because I'm going to work on morals. I'm going to work on the morality to guilt you into doing something, manipulating your superego. I'm going to make you feel like a bad person by using religion, by using how we grew up, by using this is what's expected of you. I'm going to take that superego part of you and I'm going to play on that. My id, right? Whoever's using the, let's say the religious trauma, whoever's using that is in their id and they're feeding your superego. So this is where you find that counter, that fight, because you're like, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. And you're like, well, I guess because your superego goes, oh, that's right. I don't want to be selfish. You're not selfish for practicing something that you choose. But the superego is still an insecurity. The ego rehabilitation, that's where you want to reparent that id. And that will come from working on acceptance, radical acceptance, insecurities, attachment. That's going to help this. This isn't a switch that is going to change your life. It's a process that when you get to this part and you lay down that sword and you're perfectly okay with what people think and if blah, 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 now you're in that healthy part of your ego. Now the ego, so we know the little brat is like, "Nyeh, nyeh, 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 nyeh," and then the adult is like, oh, well, I'm going to be in control. Now think of this as the wise one. The wise one walking in is your actual ego that you want to live in. That mediates. So that's a mediator, and that's going between desire and discipline. This is why discipline is one of the biggest practices of Buddhism, of Stoicism, right? This is the absolute part of discipline. So here's step one. And again, we'll go way deeper over on Patreon, but here's step one. Observe the impulse. What's the impulse? What's it trying to do? What's it avoiding? What's that instant dopamine? So pause, just pause and just label it. Just, okay, this impulsivity is blank. What is it trying to fill? What are you avoiding? What do you think that this is going to create for you? What's that instant gratification doing for you? So you could say, hey, this is just my id. Focus on what it is. You're not mad at the id. It's part of who you are. That's that shadow self we speak of. Both of these are within your shadow. I do a lot of shadow work. I do a lot of intuition. I've seen dead people all my life. That was very much ridiculed through, I grew up Southern Baptist, so that should tell you ahead of time. I'm very embracive of it now, and it's very well received, but it wasn't always. So I had to live in this weird place of stuckness because I couldn't be myself, because being myself was somehow wrong because people didn't understand it. And when people don't understand something and they don't like it and it makes them uncomfortable, they try to negate it and make you feel like you're the crazy one. And you're not. They just have a limited mindset. So you observe it and you just label it. Hey, this is my id, just wants control. That's all. Then you have to ask yourself, is this the need of is this a need or is this a reaction? What is the reaction? Because see, being able to respond versus being able to react are extremely two different things. Again, the id says, I know that they did not just send that text. F that. I'm going to get them right on back. Believe you me, when I was in victim mentality in my teenage years and my early 20s, my God, I was in victim mentality, and I was most certainly in my id. Certainly in my id. Because that's the need to be protected. That's the need to know that nobody's going to get over on you. That's the need to go to battle. That's the piece that you're working on. Acknowledge it, look at it, and don't be embarrassed by it. So what? You did some crazy things. You've been hurt and you've hurt people along the way. You sitting there and throwing yourself on the sword on the hill doesn't change it. You learn from both sides and you move forward. Drilling yourself and then trying to hide your past is another problem. Own it. Did you do it? Yep. Because people don't have the tools and power to hold over you if you own your stuff. This is where people are like, oh God, I got those skeletons in the closet. I don't want them to bring it up. Well, guess what happens? You don't think that they know that that's a control tool? Own it. Own your stuff. Own what you said. Own what you did. Hey, again, you've been hurt. You've hurt people. You've made poor choices. You've done, okay. You're here today. Walk into it. Own it with your head high. This is important. Now, step 2 is soothe. Do not suppress. We don't want you to suppress things. This is where you ground through breath, and then you label your emotion. Okay, I feel rejected. Go ahead and just say it. I feel rejected. This is just allowing your amygdala to lower, and it lowers by 30%. Yes, there's science behind it. Lieberman did this in 2007. This is imperative. When you label it, see, the other thing is you don't want to admit if you're in attachment. You don't want to admit, oh my God, I feel abandoned. I feel rejected. because that means it's vulnerability. The vulnerability then says to the id, what is happening here? We need to be defensive. I don't understand, because it feels out of control. Label it. I feel, and feelings are not facts. They will never be facts. I feel rejected. Great. This is where you'd grab one of those journals of mine, or just a paper. And this is where you would write, why do you feel rejected? What part of that is it activating? What part of your id that you're not in control of is it activating? This is how you have awareness. You don't judge it, you label it. When you label things and you see it without emotion, not apathy, where you're, not like where you're like, oh my God, I don't feel anything, you're lying. But you just look at it and you say, okay, I'm having an anxious moment, or I'm having this, or I'm having that. Just label it. That's all you got to do. You don't got to change it. But this does lower that amygdala, fact in science, by about 30%. Reward delay gratification. We've talked about this multiple times. Reward delay gratification. Each pause is going to build that neuro strength. So what that's going to do is it's going to help that prefrontal cortex. It's going to improve regulation. So that reward delay, this is where you don't just, oh, God, I've lived this for so long, my impulsivity. Ooh, want a new car? Ooh, I don't care if I'm going to be upside down. Let's go get a new car. Ooh, I like it. It makes no sense. You're like, oh my God, yeah, but that's stupid. You're not going to, doesn't matter. I need that shiny new thing. It's not just about filling a void, so to speak. It's about this gratification that is very short-lived. It doesn't even have to be a car. I'm sure you've heard of buyer remorse, right? Buyer's remorse, where you buy something, then you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe I did that. Again, it doesn't have to be a car. You're like, the hell did I do that for? This goes back into that id and the super ego that goes, I wanted that cake. I had that cake. Oh God, why did I have that cake? Oh my God, that's terrible. You have to ask yourself, what is it that you're trying to get right away? And I promise you this, and this is in science, this is in your therapy, this is in life in general. The more you're looking for a fast fix, not just gratification, but fast fixes are gratification, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to blame other people. You're going to make excuses for your behavior, or you're going to make excuses for somebody else's behavior, and you're going to see them doing the exact same thing. You're going to see them living it. Now, don't go pointing out to people, hey, you're in your id. People get really activated, even though it's true. Because see, then your ego is trying to prove a point to show that they're in there. Stop doing that. That's not a thing. We don't want to do that. And then you want to rebuild that internal safety. So the id itself seeks control when feeling unsafe. So this is the piece that you're going to work on way before you get here. And it kind of helps regulate itself, the id, over a period of time, because you're working in other areas. We call it like a comorbidity type thing, right? When you're working on releasing the attachment, radical acceptance, not needing to control, not needing to be right, not needing to be understood, not needing to get in the last word. Needing to get in the last word is your id in high levels. Needing to know why somebody is doing the actions is your id. Needing that closure is your id, regardless of where it came from. So when you understand what part of your ego, and I just told you, about 80 to 90% of your life is rooted in your id, which is why we want to reparent it and regulate it, give you the ability to acknowledge it without judging the fact that it's happening. Okay, this is my id. This is what it's doing. So you got to practice slow. And you need to remind yourself, nothing bad happens when I pause. Yes, maybe if somebody is pulling a gun on you or something, maybe you want to go ahead and be in reactive mode, but not other than that. It's okay to pause. It's okay to be misunderstood. Who cares what somebody thinks of you? See, here's the problem with your id. Oh, somebody doesn't know it. If everybody likes you, you do not like yourself. If everybody loves you, you don't love yourself, because that means that you're fitting into everybody's box. That should never be your goal. You are going to be authentic. You are going to be who you are. You are going to have boundaries. You are going to be able to respect people's boundaries. And there are going to be people who don't like it. There will be people who can't stand me, and there will be people who can't stand you. And there will be people who love to not stand you. They don't matter. Why does your id step in to make it seem like everybody matters? They don't. You can't let that rattle you. If you're reactive about everybody looking poorly on you, not only are you in your id, you're in your super ego and everything that comes in between. So important that you understand this. It's okay to be the villain. It's okay to be called selfish and rude and all. That's going to happen. That means that you're no longer abandoning yourself. You're no longer in self-abandonment. You're not meant to please everybody. You're not meant to rescue everybody. This podcast, my services, my book, my journals are going to be for the people who need it, who are willing to make the changes. I'm not doing it for everybody else. What are you doing life for? Are you doing it for everybody else? Are you trying to make everybody else happy? No. It's okay. And I promise you this, until you're willing to be alone and learn yourself and hear yourself and not numb yourself and not try to silence yourself, then you can have healthy relationships because you're not doing it out of attachment. Your ego isn't going, you must control this. You must need. No. That's how you get to learn yourself. That's how you get to reparent your ego. You go, okay, well, look, this feels kind of sucky. That is just me. And yeah, we crave connection as humans, but not at the risk of staying attached for the sake of having somebody breathe oxygen in the same space as you. Hard pass. No, 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 no. No. So then step 5 is integrating your desire logic. Compassion, right? It brings compassion. Superego brings discipline, and ego brings balance. So let's go to that again. Id brings passion. It's passionate. It's driven. This is what it is. Superego brings discipline. All right, well, I want this, but you know what? I cannot have this right now. So your superego, without ego in the middle, the balancer, fights your id. So your superego goes, hey, man, like, it's okay. Like, let's have a little discipline here. And your id goes, screw you. I don't care what you want. This is what I want. And your id wins out about 80 to 90% of the time. So you want to focus on the mindfulness. That's the biggest Buddhist practice. Mindfulness, stay in a present space, grounding, do your breath work, do your mantras, do your rituals, do whatever it is that keeps you balanced. And your ego, here's where you know, and I don't say the words to therapize yourself. This is something I tell my clients all the time. If we're doing work, and let's say we're weekly, if you're a weekly client, you have access to me, you have access to my text, you have access to that because I need to see it in action, right? I need to see your it in action in the moment, not always a week later. But I've heard people say to me, I don't know if I know the answers to these questions, certain questions. Okay. You don't need to know right then. Your id goes, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And then you start using therapy speak. So here's where like the ego piece of it. The healthy ego piece of it. I can want something and still choose how to pursue it. I don't need you to say the words if you don't believe them. That's the other thing. You try to talk yourself into being this person without taking the actions of consistency, of patience, of being triggered and accept being triggered. I love to trigger my clients and I will do it at every turn. Why, you ask? Why would somebody say that? Because I'm holding space for your inner child. I'm holding space for that part of you that you're avoiding. And you keep avoiding it and you keep putting it in the corner, and the id and the superego go, we don't like this. So when I unleash the gates and that comes to the forefront, you're like, what is happening? Ooh, I don't like that. Good. Your id goes, ooh, we do. Your amygdala says, we don't want to deal with this. I love to bring it to the forefront. I love to put it in front of your face so you can't avoid it. Feel uncomfortable. Feel like you're going to pass out. Feel like you're having an anxiety attack. You're going to die. Good. Good. You resisting it does not help you. Your inner child, your shadow self has been waiting forever for you to acknowledge it. So sometimes it's me unleashing the dragon so it can come in front of you. So if your id is stepping in to go, we don't like this discomfort, we don't like the trigger, you will always stay a victim to whatever it is that you're hiding from, whatever it is that you're avoiding. And that's where your ego goes, oh God, okay, well, we're triggered. Let's look at this. Why am I triggered? What is this bringing up? Why would I want to avoid it? Your ego is rational and it allows the feelings of discomfort and comfort to just flow. It's just a flow. Here's your trauma loops. Unhealed trauma is going to keep you in that survival loop. You want to be careful of going into the victim mentality about the trauma because it's going to be problematic. If you're reacting to criticism as danger, if you're chasing attention as validation, people pleasing to avoid a rejection, chronic trauma is sensitizing the HPA axis. And that's making, oh my God, I cannot speak English terms. It's because I'm recording 4 podcasts today. So my tongue is trying to move in a very fast way. But it's making emotional recovery slower. And that's why you know better, but still react. The id fires before logic catches up. Healing is going to require teaching the nervous system that discomfort isn't danger. Enter me bringing the triggers to your forefront. I never don't want to trigger you. Ever. No, I'm not going to trigger you the whole exact time because when that trigger and facing it is where you build confidence, is where you build self-trust. That's where I hold space for you to feel uncomfortable, feel reactive, dislike me dislike me during that session. I can't believe you'd say that. But like, the amount of people, the next time they're like, oh my God, you triggered me and I hated it. But you know what? It did make me aware. And that's where they turn. That's the pivotal piece. And people have been with me for years because we work on other areas because they worked through the fact that I put a mirror in front of their face. Your id doesn't like the mirror. If you don't like the mirror, you're never going to go through this. You're never going to get to the balance. If you're reacting to the criticism as danger, why? Why? Healing requires that. A balanced ego does not deny the id, it parents it. Hey, it's okay. Like, calm down. You want to take your Red Bull and go home. It's okay. You acknowledge your emotions without letting them dictate your behavior. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you react. Just because you don't like what somebody said doesn't mean you go off the handle. My God, I used to do that as a profession. No, like I used to be off the handle as a profession on a regular basis, always defensive. Now, that being said, you can be confident and assertive and be like, this isn't going to happen, but you're not doing it out of emotion. It's important. You got to acknowledge the emotions without letting them dictate your behavior, listen to fear without surrendering to it, and pursue comfort without betraying your growth. And here's an example. Here's an old pattern. They didn't text back. I'll double text. This way I'll feel in control. If you're rehabilitated in that, my id wants certainty, but peace doesn't come from chasing reassurance. It's going to be what it is. Who cares? If somebody is that pissed off at you, why you sitting here lamenting over it isn't going to change. Healing is not killing your impulses. It's teaching them discipline. Your id is always going to be around. Your superego is always going to be around. You're always going to want what you want when you want it. That's how we are wired as humans since the beginning of time. The discipline is not letting it drive the car. The id is screaming. The superego is scolding. How dare you do that? How dare you do that? But the healthy ego listens. Ask yourself, where in life does your id run unchecked? Do you need to know the whys? Are you trying to withhold something, withhold love, withhold connection because you need to be right? That's your id. That's where you become a toxic vampire. That's where you live. And then you get mad that nobody else wants to bring you along. And vice versa. This also is for everybody else. If you are seeing it in relationships, routines, reactions, why are you resisting changing it? Why don't you let your ego parent those impulses instead of punishing them? It's okay. It's okay that everybody doesn't like you. It's okay that people are going to call you names. Of course they are, because you are activating their id. That's what you're doing. You're activating it. They don't like it. They don't like that initial awareness. So it's up to you.